I will read our policy as making way up to the front. Our board policy states that no person can speak more than once to an issue or for a period longer than 5 minutes, except upon the consent of a majority of the district board. No more than 3 people may be heard on one side of the issue, except upon the consent of a majority of the board. So Beth, once we start speaking, can we give him 5 minutes? Or Tony, I don't know who's going to do the timing, so.
Yes.
Okay, you ready? Okay, thanks.
Okay. Hello, I'm Florence and I'm here as a member of Socialist Alternative as well as a current dual enrollment student here at MATC. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Throughout my year here at MATC as a high school dual enrollment student, I've seen and experienced the responsibility that MATC has towards the working class community of Milwaukee, which a large majority of takes classes here. When I first heard about this, I was appalled. ESL and bilingual GEDs are one of the most useful things that could be offered, especially considering that the immigrant community in Milwaukee is the largest it's ever been. Just passing by the Walker Square location, you can see all people of all walks of life coming to and from classes, some with children and some coming straight from work. On the ESL program website, an MATC alumni states MATC was my foundation, not only for learning English, but how to be a good, respectful citizen as well. How are immigrants supposed to learn how to be fully participating citizens when they are constantly having the rug taken from under them? On March 8th of 2023, you said MATC is committed to continuing to offer English as a second language classes at Walker Square and throughout the college. This is my first and last update received to my school email about this issue, and what else have you done since then? Other than to intimidate us, who have chosen to speak out against this issue with a retaliatory litigation threat, the answer is little to nothing. And to reiterate what was said last time, this is no budget error. While for you, it is an apology and providing one full-time instructor that filled an already existing spot. For others, it was having to put their lives on hold for something that they have already struggled to gain access to. Regardless of budget error, MATC has the money to fix this error and increase funding towards the program. With a general reserve fund of $44 million, a state budget surplus of $7.5 billion, and Governor Evers wanting to give $290 million to the Brewers, this is all money that could be used to fund this education and more. And it's not a matter of lack of staffing either. You have a pool of 45 instructors who would love to go full-time if authorized. But this isn't the issue, is it? This is a part of a larger issue on the rights of tax to defund public education, and it targets one of Milwaukee's most vulnerable communities. If MATC was truly in a position where they couldn't fully fund every program and more, they should be at the forefront of a fight to fully fund schools and to organize the community to put pressure on the state to raise taxes on billionaires and corporations in the state. The community would be more than ready to fight for this, especially since the people who attend MATC are the most affected by monetary barriers of education in the workplace. Except that would be targeting the wealth and power of the super rich in our state, with whom at least several board members share interests with, correct? It's right there in your bios on MATC websites. We need at least 4 full-time instructors to keep the program alive, let alone to meet the needs of the community. Plenty of these 45 instructors would love to get paid for the vital work that they do and to have a more stable job. What we will not do is let the board give us small concessions, hoping that we'll give up and bother someone else. What we will do is continue to put pressure on the board until they fully support the needs of the Milwaukee community by offering the best and most inclusive education possible, like they say they do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have, Joanne Lang, who is speaking on upholstery.
I am Joanne Lang. I'm an upholstery student, but I'm also a retired MATC bilingual instructor. And I,
Yes, you can sit. That's, yes, you can, yes.
I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. Yeah, no.
That would help. And I fully support the previous speaker, having been a bilingual teacher myself. I came here to the board meeting directly from Walker's Point and my upholstery class. We ended at 3:30 p.m. I didn't want to miss a minute of work time in my class since I needed to finish upholstering a chair for a friend. I've been working on this chair for 3 semesters now. Yes, it took me that long to upholster a chair since there's only one class offered in upholstery right now. And I can't do much at home because I need the equipment that is available in the upholstery lab, and I need the expert instruction of a professional upholstery teacher. Like many other students of upholstery, I have been learning it for many semesters, taking on projects for friends and relatives. I've done chairs and love seats. There are other students who do car seats and boat cushions. Other students in the class are perfecting their skills so that they could open a business. Here at MATC, we applaud the entrepreneurial spirit of people in our community who create wealth through small businesses. Shouldn't upholstery be one of those skills that can lead to owning their own business? I think that upholstery can be a person's interest, just like cosmetology or bakery or photography. I am here today following up on my appearance at the MATC board meeting on January 25th, 2022. Yes, it's been 15 months. I spoke that evening to make board members aware of the negative effect of the board's decision to move certain courses from the 400 level to the 600 level. Upholstery and sewing were some of the courses affected. At the mid-January board meeting 14 months ago, I spoke about the Wisconsin State Statute, Section 3627(1)B, that permits seniors like myself to audit courses without paying an auditor's fee. I spoke about MATC's curriculum handbook that says that MATC's board of directors sets the fees in these courses, about the definition of 400 and 600 level courses, and about how this changed to upholstery to the 600 level designation. The upholstery course now costs seniors $201, a 600% increase from previously, and non-seniors $400, a 100% increase. Enrollment has decreased both because of the increased tuition, but also because there is only one section of upholstery being offered. People who are employed during the day cannot take the course. To their credit, Dr. Mohammed Dakwar, Dr. Valencia Brown, Dr. Patricia Nahara, and Dr. Amy Shields have met with us and students in sewing and jewelry and painting to discuss our concerns about the tuition, about the location of the classes, about the need for instructors, and other issues. We appreciate their attention. I am here again today to ask that the MATC board and the administration at Milwaukee Area Technical College lower the tuition and open more upholstery classes so that people with this interest can hone their skills and become proficient enough to own their own business in designing and repairing furniture, automobile seats, and boat cushions. So that is my ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank both of our speakers tonight for addressing the board and sharing your concerns. The board will not be responding this evening to any matter that was in adherence to the state of Wisconsin open meetings law, which prevents us from discussing anything that was not noticed, but we appreciate your comments. Next on the agenda, we'll move into the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our regular board meeting of March 28th, 2023?
Rhea moves approval.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Director Burris has motioned and Director Mays has seconded the motion or approval of our minutes from March 28th. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to take a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda items, which includes the bills from March, the financial report, the human resources report, the procurement report, and the construction report. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda items.
Do I have a second?
Rhea.
Okay. Any discussion or items on consent agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I have a motion by Director Foley and second by Director Burris to approve the consent agenda items. I will take a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next, we will move on to our board action items, which is resolution F0266-04-23, authorizing the sale of $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2022-2023K of Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, second.
Rhea seconds.
Thanks. I believe Mr. Fisher is here. Can you come up and join us?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. So today, the district went out for public bid for the $1,500,000 note. In front of you, there's a packet that I'll just run through, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So at 9:30 this morning, the district went out for public bid. Two underwriters, and essentially two underwriters ended up bidding on the district's note issue. The first bid, the lowest bid was TD Securities at 2.9738%, and the cover bid, the second place winner, was Fidelity Capital Markets at 2.99%. So still receiving under a 3% interest rate, which is good to see. In comparison to last month, the winner again was TD Securities, and that was at 2.75%. So slightly up from last month, but still under a 3%. So good to see that for your borrowing costs. Page 3. This is the summary. This is what you see on a monthly basis. Nothing's really changed here besides adding in the low bid now at 2.9738%. Going to the next page, there's a lot of numbers on this page. Don't expect you to be able to read them all, but this is the plan that you've consistently seen month over month. We continue to track, better than projected. So that's always good to see there. And then the last few pages, that's the Moody's rating report. Some good bedtime reading material for you guys, but really nothing's changed from last month to this. So congratulations.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Fisher?
Thank you.
Yeah, easy. So we did have a motion by Director Mays and a second by Director to approve resolution F0266-04-23 authorizing the sale of $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2022-2023K. Beth, can you please take a roll call vote?
Director Burris,
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
and Director Olson.
Aye. Thanks. Next, we're going to move on to resolution F0267-04-23, authorizing the issuance of $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2022-2023L, the Milwaukee Area Technical College District. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of the resolution.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Director Foley and second by Director Mays for resolution F0267-04-23. Beth, I'm going to have you take a roll call vote.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Burris,
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye. Next, under board action is the approval of other student fees, avocation fees, and adult tuition. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay, second.
Second.
Thank you. And I'm going to call up Jeff Hollow for this to start us off. I know we have multiple people sharing information.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is, I don't know if you have this sheet in front of you or not. For the fees.
Was it given to us?
Maybe it wasn't, it was an attachment, so.
Oh, okay. Then,
It'll show
yeah.
up. So if you look at the screen, you can see the highlighted fees for tuition. Those are determined by the WTCS board. So we do not have much of a say in that. So that was the point that I wanted to make, to just make sure that you understood that the highlighted items are not adjustable or movable, or the WTCS board approves those. So that's the one point that I wanted to make. And I think what we're going to do is there's other items on here where there's changes. The avocational tuition. And I think Vice President Dockwire is going to explain it.
Good evening, Chairperson, board members, and Dr. Martin. So I think a number of students talked to you back in January and sometime last year and so on, and the cost of these courses was concerned. I met with a number of them. Many of my also team members met with them and so on. We took the time to compare to other colleges and look into best practices and so on. I do agree that we can do better and we should do better. And with that, we decided to reduce the cost of these courses from what Joanne mentioned, the $300, $400 down to $100. To be specific, we decided to go with $75 per credit. The courses that are in question is 1.35 credits. So the cost of these courses would be slightly over $100. So that's basically where we are. As I do this, I want to say that we're doing this for only 1 year, and that will give us a chance to work with the students and the community members to look into ways to find more cost-effective options. Right now, we're gonna pick up a loss of slightly over $7,000 a year. This is not sustainable, and we'd like to come back to you with some sustainable options. But in the meantime, we've decided to reduce the cost for our students. Any questions?
What is the relationship between the change from a 400 level class to or from a 200 level class to a 600 level class? I didn't get the numbers right.
Yeah, it's really the designation and the state kind of rules on that, what can or can't be done. What are kind of the purpose of the course? Is it kind of, recreational? Is it vocational? Is it post-secondary? Does it lead to a certificate? Is it for so these designations we have to pay attention to, and these courses we designate them as recreational for the right reasons. And I think that's why we designate them the way we did. So
600 level are the ones that are designated recreational. Is that what you just said?
the 400 is recreational. Yes.
Okay.
The 600 is
Is what?
is actually what leads to kind of a higher kind of credential.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has enrollment dropped?
Yes,
Do we have a sense of why?
of course. I think, I think Joanne mentioned this. I mean, the cost was a factor and we have less students taking our courses. If we drop that course, we're hoping that more students will be taking these classes, that hopefully with the volume, we should be able to make up some of the loss. But I can tell you, the loss is significant. The way we offer our courses, for the number of hours, the way we pay our instructors and so on. So we need to look into it. Again, our commitment is to have affordable, flexible courses. We will stick to that. In the meantime, also, we want to make sure that it's cost effective and sustainable as well.
When you say, sorry,
That's okay.
when you say that the loss is substantial, do you mean the loss of the students or the financial impact?
I meant the financial impact, but I think now that you say the loss of students is also significant. But my reference was to the loss on the course. We like to break even. I mean, in the minimum, we don't make money, right? We don't make profits, but we are expected. I mean, this is taxpayers' money to be highly responsible, and the break even is what we go with. Yes.
So did I have the total right at 7,000?
7,500 to be exact. We did an estimate based on the number of sections that we offer, how we pay our instructors, how many students attend these classes. And we ran multiple what if scenarios, and then we came up with $7,500 a year.
Because it's per course or something?
No, I mean, if we take all the recreation courses,
Okay.
yes.
So you mentioned the adjustment to the fee structure. Is that the only reason that we're losing students, or what are the other reasons we're losing students?
That's the only one that I'm aware of. So,
Because I mean, we heard from the ESL students that the timing of the sections previously, and we've discussed that. So, and
Yeah. To be honest with you, I think we really work around the needs of our students, their availability and so on, even our instructors as well. So really, that's the way we do business around here. In the past, we were able to run multiple sections because the cost was lower, right? And then we had more students, but with the increased cost and so on, we didn't have the demand anymore. So we canceled a number of sections. So if they say only one section is offered, they're right, only one section, because we didn't have the numbers to run the other sections.
So
It
would you
may- it-
add sections if there was a wait
Absolutely,
list?
absolutely. That's our commitment. If we have the numbers, if we have the demand, we will do so. We'd like to see more numbers and we'd like to, like I said, hopefully make up some of the losses. But in the meantime, we will work with our students and community members to see if there is another formula where we can do this more effectively.
One follow-up, also out of curiosity, when the question was asked about why we're losing students, where does that data come from? Do we do surveys? Do we solicit information from students that don't return? How do we know why they're not returning?
We look at enrollment trends. So, I mean, so if we run enrollment trends over the past, let's say 5 years, it shows by semester, by year, and so on. So over time, we did lose some students.
Right, but do you know the why?
Or the why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I-
we're addressing a cost issue. And you've stated that this is what you believe to be a reason that we're losing students. I'm just wondering where that data has come from. If you're asking students or if you're getting any sort of survey information.
Sure. We did have multiple meetings with them. I did have a number of meetings. Really the main reason that came up, maybe the only reason also was really cost. Could there be other reasons? I didn't really survey all the students and so on.
Director Foley.
Do we have a mechanism whereby students can communicate right away? I would like to take this class, but I can't do it at the times that are offered. Is there a way for them to do that, or is that just sort of catch can?
There really isn't at this time. I mean, unless they go directly to their advisors, our advisors give us a sense of when is a good time for our students to take classes and so on. We did invest in a platform called Astra. It should help us do some predictive analysis, student enrollment patterns, how they would like to enroll, what times and so on. We're not exactly there, but potentially we should be able to.
Thank you.
Sure. One more question. here?
Yes, Director Burrows.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, piggybacking off of Foley's question. So we have students that potentially end up on waiting lists at some point through the enrollment process. And are those students being engaged with? Is that a way that we could probably ask what their availability is?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone that's on the waiting list, we try to accommodate them, meaning to say, if we have enough numbers to open other sections, we do that. Unless we have no program capacity to do so, right? So in the meantime, also, we do offer them other options, like instead of taking this class, we may want to think about taking this class, and we work on a program plan with them and so on. So we connect the advisors with them, the friendship coaches, and we try to find other options for them. So they're not really kind of, oh, I want to take this class and there's no one to talk to and so on.
And that's a good plan. I guess my question really was like Foley was saying, is there a way to catch the data to see when students are available to take certain courses?
Yes.
And so in the waiting period, the waiting stage that we have, is there a way for us to contact those students to see what their availability would be so we can schedule classes around that time frame that most of those students would be available?
I'm gonna say yes, there should be. Are we doing this right now? I mean, every single waiting list, no, but we can, and we can engage our advisors from now on.
Yeah.
Any waiting list that pops up, I mean, we can be very intentional about reaching out and talking to them
Yeah.
about their availability. Yes, thanks for that suggestion.
So I have one more. So I'm certainly not opposed to reducing the fee schedule at all, but I am a little concerned that we're solving a problem without having all of the data. If our intent is really to be able to enable more students to attend, I'm not sure that this is the only problem that the students are facing. I am concerned you can online shop and click on something and you will get a notification, an email, say, hey, I see you were interested in something. Why did you not buy it? So I'm a little concerned with our inability to really collect data and understand. Yes, of course, if a student calls and says, I would take this class if there was another section, that's a data point, but that's not the reality of what most people do in my experience. So I would like to see some sort of proposal and I know that's not probably your space because it's probably IT or broader, but to really understand and have more data around why we're missing these students, if that's really the problem that we're trying to solve.
So, Dr. Case, we do survey our students within the programs.
Right, but you're not getting the students that didn't sign up for the program, who
Correct.
didn't get the waiting list. So
And that's
it's-
exactly my point.
Right.
I don't want to pretend that we really reach out, we know
Right.
every single reason, but the truth is there are just outreach efforts and we survey our students, we build our schedules around their needs. But even with that, we continue to miss some students, to
Right.
your point, you know. Yep.
So I don't know what the answer, I'm sure it's not near term, but I would like some thought on how we solve that problem. Right, Abby?
And I know, and I don't want to prolong it because I think,
Right.
I mean, it's very, but I also do, I know that instructor availability is a
Yep.
factor, and I know that instructors there's a shortage, and so I understand the
Right.
variables of all of these things coming together. It's a puzzle for sure, so I get that piece of
Yeah.
it, that trying to find that balance between there and serving everybody, so I also understand that if people want to offer a class at 9 o'clock at night, that may not be an option available too, so, yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
But
So,
interim resolutions are also significant
Mhm.
to stop the bleeding, so. they're
Yeah,
the way to do
we
that.
really appreciate your
Right.
support and you give us 1 year to really work with our students and community to find more, maybe reasonable solutions, you know, sustainable solutions.
thank you.
Thank you.
We have, I think, Jeff Jans is also sharing us the third part of this proposal.
Try it. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to talk about the student activity fee. This is an interesting fee in that it has not been changed since 2004. And yet inflation has changed a bit since 2004. And we've added several services and some staff to the Fund 7, which is a fund that is largely given funding from the activities fees. We're dealing with a substantial deficit, over $900,000 in Fund 7 at this moment. Eric Zyman's our Director of Student Life, has joined us to offer any details or answer any questions that you might have. We have a dilemma at this point that there are many services we offer. We've added many, for example, the food pantry out to all of our campuses, subsidy for our childcare, several new positions, and we will have to start looking at what we can afford if we don't raise it. Our proposal is, it was initially to go from an $8 per credit amount, which it has been for many years, to $12.25. And in fact, the District Student Government Association approved that by a majority vote. However, we've reconsidered that, and we feel that it is better to give an increase over a gradual period of time, with a movement from $8 to $10.15, and then future years, which we don't need to vote on yet, moving to a larger amount, and then from that point on, staying in sync with the percentage increase of tuition in line with many other campuses. And I could mention too that we've done a study of the WTCS schools, and many of them offer a range of fee rate structures based on the program they're in. We are currently and have been on the lowest end of those fees for many years. So we're looking to increase it incrementally at this point. And Eric is here too. Eric, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jans. I appreciate everybody's time here and support to look at this. I would add, when looking at this, we've held off intentionally through the pandemic years to not impact students when we were kind of at some of the largest impact of student changes, both financially as well as life impacts that we know the students have been facing. But we're kind of at a point now where if we don't address the fact that we haven't changed this fee in almost 19 years, almost 20 years, that our budget won't be able to sustain the deficit further. So looking at this, at 12.25, that's a 53% increase. Inflation's gone up 59, almost 60% since the last increase to this fee. And so we didn't want to jump that big, as Dr. Jans mentioned. We want to do an incremental fee so the fees adjust, to the students a little bit better. Additionally, the approach here is to increase the fees as minimally as possible while enrollment grows. And so our hope is that by not jumping to a number that would completely wipe out a deficit on a fee, but increase enough that combined with enrollment growth over the next few years, that we would be able to get to a balanced budget. We currently do maintain reserves in Fund 7 for the student activity fees from past years where we had either positional vacancies or year-over-year operational costs where we didn't spend the budget at the high enrollment years. And so we are able to take a small deficit year-over-year until as we work to get enrollment back to where it needs to be. But at the current $8 rate, that wouldn't be possible. And so that's why we come before you tonight to kind of bring this to your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just clarifying question, there's you guys both mentioned a step increase, but the spreadsheet we're looking at says 8 this year, 8 next year, and then up to 12.25, but I thought somebody said 10.15 for next year.
10-15 for this coming year.
Okay, so what we're looking at is not correct then.
Possibly, I'm not sure what you're looking at, but that would be right.
2022 column, there's a 2022 column,
Yep.
there's a
23 column also says 8, and then
24 is next year is what they're.
so that says 12.25.
Oh, that's an error.
Yeah,
We're
but
speaking of fiscal year, sorry, right?
They're two, yeah, those two are historical fiscal years.
right, but you said there should be a step increase of 10.15
correct.
in between the 8 and the 12, which is not reflected on here.
That's right. That was our preliminary plan.
Okay.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yep.
I should add too, that we intend to reduce some costs for our students in replacement fees for UPass from 50 to 25, I believe that is, Eric. And also their Stormer ID, if they lose their ID, we're gonna cut that in half as well.
Yeah, we're going to cut that down to 10 from 15. And the intention there is what we're hearing from students is that the replacement fees, when they were initially set, they were set as a measure to deter students from losing them. But what we're hearing is it's actually an access issue. Students don't have the $50 to replace their UPass fee. And so then they are not using it or having to use community resources to be able to get transit to attend. And so we want to reduce that access issue if we can, and doing analysis on the cost to actually maintain the program, we can sustain those reductions. And since we're increasing in one area, this would be something that we want to do to help with equity for students that do have the challenge of funding the replacement fees.
I really do want to emphasize the value of Fund 7 for our childcare service. We often use the phrase that we offer a 5-star childcare program at a 3-star rate. And we can do so because of the supplement that we get from Fund 7.
Just want to clarify again, what was the deficit?
Just over 900,000. 904, I believe it is. Any other questions?
Okay, so there's 3 parts to this. To make sure everybody's processing that we're good to go. I think we're okay. Jeff, I don't see any other.
I'll be nearby.
Yep, okay. Any follow-up questions or additional discussion? Okay, so going back, we had a motion by Director Foley and second by Director Burris to approve the other student fees, the avocational fees, and the adult tuition. This will be a voice vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Just for the minute clarification, are we approving this attachment as it stands?
Or with the correction, you mean?
Yeah.
With the correction.
With the correction.
Yep,
Okay,
as verbally stated.
okay.
Yes,
just wanted to be clear on
yes, yes, as was clarified that by Director Case's question, and Dr. Jans clarified that that was what it should have been. Okay, did I ask for anybody opposed? Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We will move on to the reports. First report then is the chairperson's report, which is mine. Last week, Directors Case and Foley attended the Wisconsin District Boards Association meeting that was held at Gateway Technical College. That was our shortest commute to any of those. And I know that Director Foley has some information that he would like to share.
Two or three things. One is, this is the annual planning and budgetary meeting for the District Boards Association. And we approved a budget for the next year of, I believe the number was $566,000. This is an extremely narrow budget, given what they do. They've canceled newspaper subscriptions. They have gone to a smaller space. They have brought in their used furniture to furnish the office, and it goes on and on. And last year, their direct contributions through the lobbying efforts, apart from anything else like training for board members, brought in, I think the number was 17 million additional dollars. So there is some opposition in at least two of the colleges to funding these things, to the point where they were arguing about their 1/16 pro rata contribution to a $3,000 expense. I think it's pretty short-sighted, but it does exist at a couple of the colleges. The second thing I wanted to talk about is we had a presentation called the Governance Journey, which was from a professional who provides guidance to boards, and particularly college boards, about the balance, how to create and maintain the balance between management on one side and leadership on the other. Management being the responsibility of the administration for the most part, and leadership being the responsibility of the board. Dr. Martin was there with me during this presentation, and one of the things that struck us both was the presenter was talking about having a policy which is an official delegation of authority and responsibility from the board to the president of the college, and what that looks like. And I think we were both surprised that it appears that most of the 16 tech colleges have such a document. We do not. And so what I asked to have distributed, these are parts of that presentation which have snapshots, if you will, of portions of some of the other colleges' policies in this regard. I talked to a number of the members of boards in these organizations, and they say that it really helps them keep straight when they are acting within their scope of responsibility, when they may be overstepping the bounds. Some of them said they regret policy is stated in terms of thou shalt not in its entirety, as opposed to thou shall. But my suggestion is that we include this in the existing ad hoc policy review committee's area of responsibility and focus for this term, and see if we can't come up with a proposal like this out of that same activity. I don't think that requires a vote, but it's just a suggestion and direction from the chair, if that's what you want to do.
Yep, and we meet tomorrow, so.
There was one last thing that the District Boards Association Executive Director Layla Merrifield was talking about. There was a PolitiFact article published in the last month or so, last 2 weeks, I think, comparing the per capita funding for the University of Wisconsin system to the per capita funding for the tech colleges. And it made it sound like our coffers were overflowing. And it was because of a fundamental failure to understand the numbers. That is, they went with total head counts in each case. I'm sorry, they went with full-time equivalents in each case. But that ignores the fact that even for our part-time students, we spend money to support them with counseling and all sorts of other things. And so even if we have fewer full-time equivalents, we have 26,000, 25,000, whatever it is, head count that requires that. And so the per capita funding calculation was completely wrong. There's some concern that that error has already led to comments from members of the state legislature about how we don't need the new money that we're asking for this year. And I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, and I think we should talk with our own lobbyist about perhaps making a point of pointing out that problem. And perhaps if you're so inclined, contacting members of the legislature and telling them that's a mistake. And perhaps if you know the editor of PolitiFact, encouraging him to correct it, as Layla has already done.
Yep, and I maybe if she joins us, I think that'd be a great thing to bring up to her. So has somebody done a counter calculation for that, Mark, then?
I don't know the answer to
'Cause
that.
that would seem like you'd want to offer that rather than just saying, hey, this article is incorrect. Sometimes we talk with legislators without providing that next, like saying, and this is, if you did it this way, this is what it is. It's sort of like that legislative fiscal bureau that provides that nonpartisan approach to correcting stuff. And so I'm just wondering if Layla or anybody else has said, hey, we should go ahead and do this then.
I don't know the answer to that. I can certainly ask Layla. I think bringing it up with Rami and
Yep.
having her talk to Layla is probably the most efficient way to
Sure.
get it done.
Yep.
'Cause,
Okay.
if anybody can do that calculation, I think it would be Ms. Merrifield.
Right.
She knows that process really, really, really
Yep.
well.
Yeah, and I would think that Layla is working with Dr. Foy
Yeah, okay.
already
Okay.
to come out with some sort
Sure.
of op-ed on this. To really,
Yeah.
because we've talked about the data quite a bit, and so that's my guess of what's going on, but I will follow up as well.
Yeah, I just think anytime that you can be explicit about how the calculation is and not just give a new number, show how and why is just important because, you know, legislators have a lot of different topics and just
Yeah.
so being that, so that's good. So we'll share that. So, thanks.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Tomorrow, the college is celebrating graduating apprentices at the apprenticeship banquet being held at the Bucharest Erie Club. And we do have several board members planning on attending. If anybody has not done that, you have a short window and let Beth know because it's tomorrow. And also I would like to invite board members to join us. We do have a date and time for our spring commencement. It's Sunday, May 21st at 11 a.m. at the Fiserv Forum. And also the next day is the GED graduation on the 22nd. I have a sign up sheet that I can pass around so we can take care of that. And Tuesday, the 23rd, we'll be back in this room. So you can do a trifecta of MATC events if you are looking for something to do in or around the middle to end of May. So I'm going to send around this sign up sheet for both of those events. Shortly, the board will be receiving our board self-evaluation survey that comes through SurveyMonkey. We do that. If you remember, we recently looked at that in our past board meetings. There were a couple corrections that were there. So you should anticipate getting that. And then you will need to have that completed by May 15th. So please, when you get that, we need all 9 people to complete that. And we've been working really hard to say, I don't have information to answer that. So hopefully that is not where people are, or reach out with those questions that are there. And then we will compile those results and talk about either in May or the June board meeting, what that self-evaluation tool is, as we've done that before.
You said by May 19th?
15. Yeah, but we'll put that in the email, but just if it's coming, knowing that there's a timeline on that in order for us to turn that around. May 24th. More fun that week. MATC is hosting the district board appointment meeting at 1 o'clock to appoint the superintendent representative member. Remember that 2 of the new members were selected. There was not a superintendent candidate for the board. And so they are accepting applications through April 28th at 4:30 p.m. So if anybody is listening or knows somebody who is a superintendent in the district, they can apply, and it's on our website under the Board of Directors tab. And as I sort of alluded to, the Board Policy Task Force meets tomorrow at 11 a.m. and I would like to task the committee with looking at that policy. I do think when it's one of those things when we're in the minority and do not have one of those, it lets you know that we probably should, that folks know something that we don't, and having that in there is probably a good idea. So I'd like to ask the committee to look at that, and if you have samples already, but just sort of look at developing that. And that concludes my report. Next is Dr. Martin's report. So
Okay, well, thanks, Chair Olson, board members, faculty, staff, community. Here's a few updates since the last time we met. I am pleased to announce that Debbie Hamlet has accepted the offer to become the Milwaukee PBS Vice President and General Manager. She is currently the Executive Director and General Manager at WCMU Public Media, providing management and direction for 38 staff members and 20 college interns. Like Milwaukee PBS, WCMU is a licensee of an institution of higher ed, which is Central Michigan University. Prior to her time there, Ms. Hamlet held leadership roles at Nebraska Public Media, Illinois Public Media, and South Carolina ETV. I want to thank Dan Breivik for his leadership and his commitment to the station over this interim period. He's just done an outstanding job, and I'm very grateful for everything that he's done. And I want to thank the Milwaukee PBS team for their important feedback throughout this whole hiring process. She begins June 12th, so she will be here at our June board meeting, and you'll all have a chance to meet her then. I also had the pleasure of attending the American Association of Community Colleges, their annual meeting, April 1st through the 4th in Denver, and was proud to join the celebration of the 2023 Outstanding Alumni Award recipients. Our alum, William Campbell, is the economic officer of the U.S. Department of State, and he works at the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi, Kenya, and he was really honored with this award. And he brought his father with him. He traveled, of course, quite a distance to be there. It's quite an honor when you really think about it, because of course I was bragging and saying how wonderful he was. And many people said, do you know how many graduates there are of the over 1,000 community colleges over how many years? So it is quite an honor to be selected. And he is really just an excellent representative for our college. And his words actually were repeated by the head of the system. So he was really very happy to receive this award, and he did a great job while he was here. He was president of our Black Student Union, and he also transferred after that, and then came back to Marquette, and then of course I worked for Obama for a while, so that was just a great event. And we're really proud of him. The Wisconsin Bakers Association recently sponsored its annual baking competition. This year, more than 50 entries were submitted in 4 categories by bakers with various skill levels from student to professional. And we are happy to announce that 4 of our baking and pastry arts students won medals, 2 gold, 1 silver, and a bronze. I want to thank Holly Bauman and all of our culinary arts faculty who supported and encouraged our students, several who started this career path after the pandemic when they had previous life plans. Last Thursday, this was a great event. We had our first senior, that means high school senior signing day in our Cooley Auditorium right across the hall. Participating students signed their letters of intent on the auditorium stage. After they signed their letters, we served them cake and they snapped some selfies, and they received MATC and Stormer swag. Many of the students mentioned our MATC Promise program as the reason that they came to MATC. I want to thank Marwell Santiago and the MATC recruitment team, along with the full marketing and communication team. Our MC, Greg Ware, or Sir G, what a talent. Our deans, Student Life, Milwaukee PBS, High School Relations, and Tricia Stair for making this event such a success. And finally, it's been a busy couple days here. We had the Higher Learning Commission team here on campus to conduct our mid-cycle accreditation review. 4 of those Higher Learning Commission team members met with administration, faculty, staff, executive committee board members, and students. And I want to thank Dr. Christine Mannion and her team and all of our employees who helped gather the information and prepare the campus for this visit. We're going to be receiving a report in the next few weeks. They said they had a great visit here, and we're looking forward to what they have to share. But we actually had to gather students in the hallways, and they were great. And so it really was an excellent visit for us. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Our student representative is unavailable tonight, so we will not have a report. And so next will be our diversity, equity, and inclusion report with Dr. Eva Martina-Paulus.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, and I brought my glasses with me because they're, I'm getting to that point. So I am super excited to just be giving some updates this month. The Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion continues to grow. And as I'm looking back 2 years ago when my position first started at MATC, I just cannot believe all the things that we have been able to accomplish from the cabinet level, approving the 5-year DI plan, to the office opening in October, to also beginning to really build the infrastructure for diversity, equity, and inclusion at MATC. I think the last couple of days, including today, have been outstanding. Also just listening to the voices of students, staff, and faculty and employees through the HSI questions and the open forums and all of that. It's been a really wonderful time to be able to hear some of that feedback. So I have a couple of updates today. The last 3 weeks, I visited 5 different locations, the 5 MATC locations, and did presentations related to the DI plan. So the DI sessions were open to faculty, students, and staff, and I just really had a great time meeting new employees, talking to students, and also listening to their voices and their stories as they relate to the DI plan. So I'm very thankful to have been given that opportunity to get out into the overall MATC community and be able to hear about what are your thoughts of this DI plan? Does this make sense? So they did provide a lot of really good feedback that I'm taking back to my team. The Office of DEI, the DEI Committee, and the Center for Teaching and Learning, we kicked off our very first inaugural Inclusion Champions program. So we have a cohort of 22 faculty and staff members who will be part of the cohort, engaging in a 30-hour DEI certification program, and then also engaging throughout the year on different topics related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. We had our kickoff a couple of weeks ago, and it was just outstanding to be able to see the collaboration between our staff and our faculty. And I think when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're really thinking about everyone at MATC. The feedback that we received from this cohort is that faculty and staff are both excited to be able to be in the same space and be able to build this work. So we envision that the Inclusion Champions program will become a broader program at MATC, and every year we will be assisting with the development and programming for different cohorts at the college. Eventually, one of the goals in the next 5 to 6 years is to be able to also have our Inclusion Champions program at the student level as well. 2 weeks ago or last week, the Office of Multicultural Student Services and Office of Bilingual Education hosted the Cultural Day for students, faculty, and staff. And these cultural days have been proven to be extremely effective at bringing people together. So for example, there were over 200 people that participated in 605, room 605 here downtown. And we also have individuals online as well. We had performances, African performances, Native American and Latinx artists just being able to showcase their culture, but then also deliver empowering messages in terms of where we are in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. For example, when we had our African dancers, one of the things that really stuck out to me and many in the audience is the message that diversity is beautiful, and that we have to recognize our similarities and our differences, because at the end of the day, the sun shines for everyone equally. I thought that was very powerful, especially for all of the people that were in that room. This programming has proven to really increase the sense of belonging for students, and also bringing students to be able to see themselves and really banking on the cultural wealth that our students bring to the MATC community. One of the things that you will be able to see in the next 3 to 4 months is our DEI committee that you have that you're familiar with. That committee will now transition into a council to be able to assist the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in overseeing the 5-year plan. I think that when it comes to collaborative decision making, we need to continue to work on having different bodies of students, faculty, and staff be able to measure the progress and really be able to give us honest feedback in terms of where things are going, So you will see the development of the council, and I will be one of the co-chairs of the council along with others as well. But this council will be able to really make sure that we get to the next level. We went from a programming council to now looking at more of the progress that we're making with the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. Those are the updates that I have for you this month. Thank you so much, and I welcome any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you so much.
Next, we have the enrollment report. Dr. Adams.
Good evening to everyone today. Not much change from our numbers from last time, but we are at 3637 for our FTEs for the spring semester. And total for the year, we're at 8157. And for the year, we're at 1.73% from our goal of 8,300. I did update, it was only a 2-number difference. But I did want to share that we have started our registration for our summer and fall coming up. And we started with priority registration, and that started on April 3rd. And we started with our veterans, and we followed it up with our clinical nursing students. And then we went to program students. And on April 18th, we opened it up for all students. Beginning with the May report, we will include our numbers for the summer and upcoming fall. We'll have those numbers included in the enrollment report. Any questions?
Director Foley.
We have been close, but haven't attained the goals for the last few years. And obviously we're coming out of a changed world and changed demographics and everything else. But my question is, what do we have to do to get there this year? What do we need? What do we need? What more can we do?
What we're currently doing is we have, I want to kind of rebooted our Strategic Enrollment Management Council. And we're looking at different, we're going to be looking at the data, we're looking at the information, we're looking at the students, we're looking at who's coming in, who hasn't been coming in. We'll be looking at all that demographic information, we'll be looking at programs, and we will be working on strategies to come up with new strategies for the upcoming academic year. Because as you said, we're continuing to move up, but we're not where we were before pre-COVID. So we do want to increase our numbers. So this is a cross-functional team that includes not only our student services, but it includes our retention areas, it includes academics, it also includes marketing. So we're coming together as well as recruitment, we're coming together as a group, and we will be working on those strategies. And I'm sure we'll be sharing that information with you, with the board a little bit later.
Thank you.
Anybody? Okay. Thank you. Next, we have our Milwaukee PBS General Manager's Report, and Dan Bray, back here, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair Olson, MATC board members, Dr. Martin. The Development Department's fundraising efforts are just over 89% towards our targeted goal of $6.3 million for the fiscal year. The March development revenue totaled $644,438, bringing this year's total revenue to $5,614,784. So we are well on our way towards the $6.3 million target. Occasionally, I've reported to you about the Free Will software. This no-cost estate planning tool allows anyone with a simple estate to make their own last will and testament. And we've been notified that as of the end of last month, individuals using this Free Will software to create their own last will and testament have earmarked some $5,392,872 in their estate plans that will eventually one day benefit Milwaukee PBS. Almost 2 years ago, Firelight Media, which is a nonprofit that supports nonfiction filmmakers of color, announced a filmmaking project called Homegrown Future Visions, a collection of digital nonfiction short films. 8 Midwestern filmmakers were selected for this project, and one of those was Milwaukee filmmaker Marquise Mays. Firelight paired Mays with Milwaukee PBS for editorial oversight and audience engagement support. Mays' film, Black Strings, is a BIPOC string orchestra in Milwaukee that performs at crime scenes. Mays' film was screened this past weekend at the Milwaukee Film Festival. It's planned for distribution through PBS, and it premieres on PBS Digital May 1st. The May edition of Black Nouveau will report on the screening, and it will be seen in its entirety on a Black Nouveau program in July. This past Sunday, Milwaukee PBS broadcast a replay of the March 25th MATC Stormers Men's NJCCA Division II Championship basketball game. With thanks to help from MATC's marketing and athletic departments, Milwaukee PBS was able to receive and clear the rights to rebroadcast that historic Making Stormers game. The NJCCA understood that this rebroadcast on non-commercial television required us to remove all the commercials from the broadcast, and they've also granted us rights to rebroadcast the game one more time just before the Stormers kick off their next season. On May 1st, we'll be premiering a new digital-first local music series called Rhythm Cafe MKE. We connect the viewer with a front row seat to performances by some of Milwaukee's favorite musicians. Recorded at Anodyne Coffee in Walker's Point, these original, up-close and personal performances and profiles of the musical artists reveal their inspiration and influences behind their music. These 5 to 7 minute digital firsts will be able to be viewed on the MilwaukeePBS.org website, on the Milwaukee PBS app, or on our own Milwaukee PBS YouTube channel. Television and e-production students were also involved in the creation of Rhythm Cafe MKE, as they'll be recording some of the behind the scenes footage to be used in the segments and for social media purposes. And our television, video production, and e-production students are also hard at work in their final preparations for the annual Student Operations Day, which will be on Saturday, May 6th. Beginning at 11 a.m. on Channel 36, they will showcase their originally produced segments and programs, and they'll also be broadcasting live from the Milwaukee PBS studios from noon until 4 p.m. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
I have one quick question. I just want to understand the fundraising numbers. You're at 89% of the goal. What fundraising remains to be done this? I guess it would be within this fiscal year to get to the.
Yeah, we're about, I'd say 5.5 to 600,000 towards the goal remains.
Mhm.
We still have a pledge drive in June.
Okay.
So a good chunk will come from the pledge drive in June. We also have 2 or 3 trips that viewers have signed up for, and we get a percentage of income on those trips. And then there's still probably some outstanding bequest income that will be coming in.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is our legislative matters report, and Laura Bray will be sharing.
Rainey is stuck in a meeting at the Capitol. But I have a report for you, and really there's not a huge update. You had in last month's report a detail of what Governor Evers had put forth in his budget, and the Joint Finance Committee is now going through their hearings and their process. And it was previously stated that rather than starting from Governor Evers' budget, they started from existing budget and then are kind of adding to that or subtracting from that rather than working from Governor Evers' budget. We may have a couple of representatives that represent portions of our district that we invite to our campuses as they're kind of trying to get a sense of the future and what's priority and important that are happening at the various campuses. So more to come there. On the legislative study committees, you also have had a report on 2 committees, the Increasing Offender Employment Opportunities Committee, and then also a study committee on occupational licenses. And in past reports, you had the list of items proposals and items that they took forward to a vote. There's one bill that has been introduced as a result of that work, and we are supporting that legislation, which allows earned, let me just put on my glasses, to allow earned release for inmates upon completion of an employment readiness training program. So that's something that is going forward, and that's Senate Bill 170. At the federal level, there is a new Department of Education FAFSA Better Future Roadmap, which we hope will really improve the FAFSA process, and we'll be following that. So it's a redesign for the 24-25 FAFSA form. And then there's other information about a effort to try to support free community college through a state federal partnership program, and we'll be seeing if that gets any legs. And then finally, we're monitoring, I know it's been a concern for all of us, any legislation or funding that might be available for digital divide issues. What we do know is that there was some broadband spending that was done, that was ARPA funding, I believe, that was more really to connect very rural communities. And so nothing has been done from a broadband perspective to improve it in the urban, because that's really where the priority was spent. But we know that that's important to our students. And so we're just kind of keeping our ear to the ground, but nothing's coming up. Finally, I was going to mention the report that you talked about. That report actually was done by the Wisconsin Public Policy Forum. So it wasn't done. So that's a nonpartisan group that we've worked with in the past. And so I'm going to actually reach out to Layla to see if she's actually spoke with the staff there, because oftentimes they may do a follow-up report. I don't know if it will be in time for the budget, but they really do try to do a job to understand the fullness of an issue. And if they missed it, there may be an opportunity to go back to them. So,
Yeah, I worked with them when I would too.
yeah, and I've worked with them in the past too, and they're very good.
Well, I have a question, and maybe
Yes.
this was for Ramy, but I do know that as I mean, there's one more listening session tomorrow in Minocqua. But do we, I know during the pandemic, we had a couple legislative quote breakfasts online to talk about that. Do we reach as our campus alone, not through the technical college system? What are we currently doing to connect with our local legislators about our specific needs so they can speak to that? I guess I'm missing that link
Sure.
between the district boards level versus locally here with the legislators.
So we are looking at the possibility of even like mid-May, if there is an interest, and I can get back to you on that.
Okay, good.
Yep.
That's what I'm just wondering. And
Yep.
what I'm hearing from Ramy on the other end is that individual reach out to your legislator we're in this sort of time frame where they're doing that, then that's a really critical piece to be able to do. And I want to make sure that we're reaching out during this time around that
Absolutely.
for funding.
Yep.
So we have
So I'll
stories that
follow
they
up
can share.
even,
Okay, good.
like in a more immediate,
Okay, good.
to see what the best approach is.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Great. I'm ready to move on to board monitoring. The first item there is our fiscal year 23 year-end projection of the general fund, and Jeff Hollow is coming up for that.
Hello again. The sheet that we, at your place has the 3 columns. And we'll be looking at revenue. There's information on both sides. The side that has revenue, total revenue is what we're going to be looking at. So if we look at so this is the forecast for this fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. You can see as we kind of go down, there's not significant changes as we go down. But as we start to get to statutory program fees, you can see the revenue is a bit lower than budget because of the lower than planned FTEs. For about, when this was put together on April 17th, the FTEs were 8,161, about 139 FTEs lower than planned. So you can see the material fees were a little bit lower as a result of it, lower FTEs. Other student fees were higher than budget, but in line with the previous fiscal year 2022. Now, institutional revenue, you can see it's considerably higher. What we're experiencing is interest rates. We're actually receiving interest income at a greater rate than what we're paying for. What you saw today, what our cost was for our debt. Our interest rates through what they call we invest in the local government investment pool, and we're receiving last month it was 4.64%. So The difference is we're projecting about $1 million of interest income compared to about 60,000 was what we budgeted for because of the rates were lower at the time we put the budget together. In the last federal revenue line, we have roughly $1.2 million of HERF funds that are included in for lost revenue. And that should use up the rest of our remaining HERF funds before the end of the year, because at June 30th, those funds, if we don't spend them, they go back to the Department of Education. So you can see the total is a little bit higher in the forecast column. Total revenue is a little bit higher than the budget, but it's a little bit lower, quite a bit lower than $1.4 million lower than the previous year, the full year of fiscal year 22. But in 2022, we had, you can see in the federal revenue, we had roughly $6.5 million of HERF funds for lost revenue. So I'll pause if you have any questions on the revenue. If not, I'll move to the expenses. And typically we have three, as I always say, there's three major categories. We have the wages, we have benefits, and we have anything, other expenses that are non-wage and benefits. And I refer to those as discretionary expenditures. You can see the wages is pretty much in line. We had positions that were open. And we also benefited from lower health claims. We had, we had a fairly decent year with health claims this year. And we also had with open positions, we've had lower, I think it was 32 employees, averaged about 32 employees a month that were not in the healthcare plan because of the open positions. And the discretionary expenditures, we are, as I think I mentioned last month, is the We Energies rates are quite a bit higher. And so there's higher increased utility costs in consulting with open positions. So you can see the total expenditures are slightly below what we budgeted and pretty close to in line with the actual fiscal year 2022. We're looking at a potential surplus of $2.3 million. Now that's subject to change, as we know, with healthcare claims could change a little bit sometimes, and we're not quite sure, with the discretionary spend, that's subject to change too, because our spending is a little bit lower than budget. So what I'll do now is just pause again to see if there's any questions related to this year's forecast.
Nope, I don't think so. Next item then
Yes.
is also yours. So it is the review of the fiscal year 24 preliminary operation budget. So that's yours also.
So this is one-sided and it's a little bit small because it's on one sheet, but it has the same three columns that we just went through. And then also we included the budget in the fourth column on the right. You can see that we're forecast, or what we included in our budget is 8,500 FTEs. And that compares to our forecasted of 8,161 as of April 17th. And so I know there was a question related to what if we don't get, what's the difference in cost between the 8,500 and the 8,161 that we experienced last year. It's an increase of 339 FTEs and 1 FTE for the upcoming fiscal year. The average revenue is $4,465 per FTE. You multiply that by the 339, and it's roughly $1.5 million of call it risk, if you think we're not going to get the incremental FTEs, but as mentioned earlier, there's a SEM team put together who have plans to drive to that 8,500 FTEs. So just any questions related to the FTEs? Okay, so then The next line we have is, or the first line I should say, is the net new construction. Typically, we had, well, last year, we had tax levy related to net new construction. It was like a little over $1.4 million of additional tax levy. We're anticipating 1.5 million this year. Now, the next line, state aid plus Act 145 funding. We are including, it's a bit aggressive. We are including 5 million or close to $5 million of the governor's recommendation for state aid. And we will know the answer to that near the end of May, hopefully. But we also have plans if the lever that we use in a situation like this where we have if there's something that's unanticipated, typically what we do is when we have open positions, we prioritize those positions. We have a position prioritization process. So if they're non-student facing, we typically would hold those positions open, and that's where our savings are. And then we get, as you know, with our expenditures, wages and benefits are 85 to 90% of our total expenditures in the general fund. And so that's our lever to help us with savings. So we will be monitoring FTEs as we go forward. And so we do also prioritize positions as necessary. So as we move down, we have tuition, there's a tuition increase of 1.9%. So you can see the impact, and also that number's higher because of the increase in FTEs. The other student fee total is flat compared to what we forecasted this year. Institutional revenue is, we don't anticipate rates to stay as high as they are at this point. We feel that there's going to be a reduction in rates. And so we anticipate lower interest income as a result. And then also on the institutional revenue line, or the federal revenue total line, we will not have any HERF funding next year. Then the $110,000 is what we received from the Department of Education for financing or for servicing financial aid. So I'll just pause for a second if there's any questions on the revenue budget.
Yeah, Director Foley.
So if I'm reading this right, we're projecting a deficit of over $1 million next year.
Yeah, I was going to go through the expenses, but when I do, I will. Yeah, so I'll go to the expenses and we can address that question. So we have wages. You can see the wages are quite a bit higher than what we had in 2022. We also have they're higher than the forecasted amount. And what we have not done is these are the budgeted positions that are this includes a little over $6 million of unfilled but budgeted positions. So what we need to do is what we have the process that we have to go through yet is to identify what positions we would like to freeze in the upcoming fiscal year. So that has not, so the effort to prioritize open positions will help us to balance the budget. That's the comment on the wage line. And then and also for the benefits line, you can see that number is a bit higher than what we forecast this current year. But if we prioritize positions, that'll help reduce the benefit cost.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do we budget full positions open, all of our open positions, or do you take a vacancy rate typically? Because I assume that we are never at a position where we have full.
Right now, there's a $4 million credit against that number right now. So there's
For vacancy?
Yeah, so we have a little over $6 million of open positions, and we've offset that partially with a $4 million credit for, as you mentioned, there's a delay in as people leave to replace people. It's been a little bit more difficult in this environment, this hiring environment that we're in. So, but we also will need to prioritize some of those positions to determine which positions we're going to freeze. So that that'll help us to, like I said, bring the number down. As Director Foley mentioned, when we get to the bottom here, you can see there's, we have $1 million deficit. We also have, if you look at our discretionary line, that number is quite a bit higher. We, a lot of it, a part of it is utility costs. I think it's $1.8 million increase in utility costs, so it's a significant number. We also have $2 million on that line that's student debt. So typically we take a charge for student debt, but if you remember, we also have we have strategic reserves from last year that have been identified to help students get back in and help them reduce the amount of debt they owe the college. So that's something that we will work on, and that'll help us to reduce that discretionary number. This does not include a pay increase. So we also have to, we are going to be working this week to start negotiations with the employment groups to talk about potential pay increase for the upcoming year.
Can I go back to the open position question for a second? So the $4 million credit, is that based on data around how many positions we typically have open? The time to fill, I would assume, I think on the HR report, it was 100 days or 111 days currently that you guys are looking to decrease. So is your $4 million based on the actual data of open positions and unfilled positions? Or is that a task per se?
It's based on the time it takes us to the historical. We're looking at the historical time it takes to fill those positions.
Okay, but I assume that there's always a vacancy rate as well, right? Even
Right. There's always been a vacancy. We've always built in a vacancy, but it's a little bit higher, right? With the 4 million. Typically, you know, and I've seen it 3 million, 2 million and 3 million based on what we've experienced, what we've been experiencing. Like I said, this year, we're going to be ending this year with over $6 million in open and actually frozen positions. So it's the combination of open and what we have designated last year.
And this might not be a question for you, but as we assess what positions are being frozen, is there also an assessment to the impact on what work is not getting done, or what classes are not being offered, or all of those? Because I assume if we don't fill a certain number of positions, somebody's not doing that work. So just follow-up question on wanting to understand what that looks like, because obviously that's a decision that we are making if we cut.
We have not frozen instruction. These are non-instructional.
It's still work that's not getting done.
I understand.
And my concern would be, and speaking from experience, typically what happens then is I cut a position and then that work falls on somebody else, which doesn't help our retention rates, which then exacerbates the concern. So I just want to.
So we do prioritize student-facing positions and positions that do affect students. And when we have lower students, we don't, we make sure that the areas have the resources that they do need. So that's when we do talk about position, when we have a position prioritization meetings, all these things come into play to make sure that we are keeping the positions open that are necessary.
Okay, well, I mean, semantics, but I would assume that all positions were considered necessary at some point, that we're not frivolously filling positions. My concern, again, whether it's student facing or not, there's still work that's not getting done, and so making sure that that's
a lot of recently we've had administrative positions. So what we've done is taken on more responsibility. It's easier to take on a little more responsibility and then add a little pay to than adding a full position. So that's been something that has happened with management and leadership, so that we make sure that we cover those responsibilities.
So maybe this isn't a question for you, but maybe a follow-up question. Just at some point would want to understand what we're approving when we cut that money. Because I'm not sure giving more money to leadership in lieu of cutting other positions is always the right answer. So I don't know who's. I don't know if that's. a
Yeah, that would be
follow-up.
my take,
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't want to go back to, it, but I just, the projection of the 8,500 FTE, I know I didn't really speak on that. I'm guessing that there's a piece for that and we're going to hear more on that as we project. So I don't want to really belabor it tonight. I know you asked if there was that. I just didn't feel like it was a point to get into all of that details on that. So I'll save that for an enrollment piece as why we're projecting and where that is. You know, and whether that's a placeholder or whatever. So, you know, and while we were close this year, I think as Director Foley shared, we've been short the last couple of years. So I am at some point curious a little bit more on that projection piece of it and what we're doing that makes us feel that that's the number we can land in, because already we have a deficit assuming that increase. And I guess that's just a piece of it for me. So I don't need an explanation. That was more of a lesson in the future as we continue to build the rationale around that specific number and our confidence to be able to get there. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next is to review the fiscal year 24 preliminary capital remodeling and renovation budget, and Ginny Rothi is here. Okay.
Yes, good evening. We've got Chris Johnson with us too, as our manager of facilities planning. Yes, we presented in your board materials and in a video the preliminary capital construction recommendations. So we did an overview of the process that we go through each year that takes into account an ability for our campus community to put new needs and requests onto the list. We did receive about 14 million new requests this year. We have an outstanding list of about 90 million in needs that have not been met in previous years, because we have 18 million that we can spend each year in capital construction. So we outlined the process that we went through to go through, excuse me, the strategic plans that are in place for the district for the Transformation 2025, strategic priorities of student experience, organizational excellence, community engagement, and connecting the academic multi-year plan and the facilities multi-year plan that the board approved last year, both of those plans, connecting those into the projects that were outlined in the recommendations for this year. So we presented some buckets of academic infrastructure and core category spending for construction in the budget. So we're here to answer any questions that might have arisen and you're reviewing this. And that's why Chris is here too, to help with the details of that.
I just have a question. I have to admit, I did not study this particular list enough to know this, and maybe it's here. We've been talking about expanding the truck driving training program at Oak Creek. And I know we were looking for some state money specifically for that. Are we spending any money on that in this projected budget?
The funding for the expansion of the truck track at Oak Creek is in this current fiscal year. So that actually, was that on the board materials this month? The bid? I'd have to look through your agenda. I think it was. I think in your consent agenda today, you approved the bid for that.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
So yeah, that's the first phase, and there's a second phase in year 3.
In the 3-year plan. Right.
Thank you for sharing the information in advance. We appreciate that. I'm not seeing any questions, so thanks.
Yeah.
Next is our online education, and Dr. Holt is here for that, and I think we have a handout.
Good evening, board chair, chair members, Dr. Martin. I previously shared with you a presentation on the online status and our vision and where we're going. So I would love to entertain a few questions.
Would you start by defining or explaining the differences between online, virtual, hybrid, blended, and high flex?
Well, so We actually categorize online as 100% online, so it's all from a distance. You have no responsibility to be on campus. It's likewise for virtual. The only difference with virtual is that you have a time and a date to meet live with your faculty and your classmates. Still, you can do that at a distance. The rest of them have partial responsibilities to be on campus. Hybrid and blended are very close as far as percentages to be on campus or from a distance. Those two are specific from WTCS. So those are two coded methods of instruction from the state.
What's the difference between the two of them?
2%.
2% of what?
Of being on campus.
Oh, okay.
The reason why the state added hybrid was they were doing a study to determine if there was a preference between the percentage of online versus on campus. So that's where we're at with that.
And high flex?
HighFlex provides the option for students to be on campus with a faculty and their peers, or to learn from a distance. And they have that option at each course meeting. So it's a flexibility measure for our students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yep.
I have one more question. Are we analyzing assistance, completion rates, what have you, based on these categories? So we know, can we tell whether there is a material difference between students using one methodology versus another?
So it's a little bit tougher because considering the different variables. So we have to consider not only the Milwaukee students, but the state students, the country students, and then we have a few students in Canada and Puerto Rico as well. So it's a little bit more complicated. What we're looking at is what's causing success and what's causing completion. We adopted an online readiness module so that we can expose students to what they can expect as an online student, as well as we have a survey at the end of that to ask them what do they need. So what we're going to look at is the items that they need, and is there an impact with the students using, especially the services. So it's the services that are offered to all students, like food and counseling and mental health services, things like that. And then also specific coaching and mentoring from the advisor and the coach that are specifically for online. So we've just collected, we had one full year. Well, we will at the end of this spring. And then we will work with IR to determine if there's an impact there. So that's where we're starting out. Just realize that the differentiation between online and the other campuses is only about 1.5 years, 2 years in the making. We had to determine a code and then collect data that way. So now we have a data set at the end of this spring, and we'll be able to do some more work with that.
I'd be interested in a follow-up on that.
Absolutely.
What about on the instructional side? I know there's a quality program, but is there any sort of coaching, measurement, et cetera, for the instructors about how well they are doing as online instructors versus in the classroom?
There is. We follow up with our faculty to make sure that they're at the level. I've been working actually with Anthology, who now owns Blackboard, and several other tools that we're using. So I have been working with the analytics team from that group to develop a dashboard. And what we have, we're very close to having it finished, is a dashboard that tells us the interaction between faculty to students, between students to students, and where the student stands, especially with their work in the classroom. And we have 4 quadrants we're putting the students in to determine if they are highly engaged, high grades, highly engaged, low grade, et cetera, based on time in the course through Blackboard, the engagement. So they're participating in discussion boards and blogs and things like that. And then the number of times that they're in Blackboard during the week. So there's 3 metrics. And then there are other instruments in that same dashboard that tell me the measure of times that faculty have gone in and met with their students. So there's a lot of data that we have worked heavily on to pull together. And then we will start to do some analysis on what is making the students more successful or not. So
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have questions on the out of state online because it's curious. And so related to the tuition piece, is there that out of state tuition then when they're taking that online from there? And then the marketing piece, I find it curious that we're lower in 22 than we were in 2017. And I don't know if that was just the introduction of it or, I mean, because that sort of was like pre and post pandemic. And so I'm guessing all of the stuff between that has sort of settled. So I was just curious on that, or competition, or just, that was just a curious piece of data to me.
yeah, so the data that is current, so after we decided on the code for an online campus, that data I can rely on because it tells me these are online students. We pull the data based on their residency being outside of Wisconsin. So I can rely on that heavily because I know exactly where it's coming from. It's disaggregated. The difference between 2017 and current is really about that definition of online and what does that mean. I think prior to that, before having an online campus and really deciding what that means, I think we were able to group things together a lot more. But now we have a more definitive definition of that. So the numbers look smaller, but it's really about the differentiation of the data. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
My second piece, which I didn't see, and I'll admit that maybe I missed it. Part of it is in the K-12 world, and the online piece of that, or any hybrid or whatever that is. And I know that the different classes are there, and part of the, at the K-12 place, part of the post, when they're taking, you know, whether it's Start College Now or whatever it is, part of that, the ability to leave school in the middle of the day and come here and take a class and then go back, because it really disrupts that senior schedule or part of that senior life they have in high school. So I guess that curiosity in that specific market and trying to encourage more at that point and what we're doing for that group, because I think it's an untapped piece right now.
Yeah.
Because it does often turn off students. And I guess some of the hands-on learning has to be hands-on, that part, I get it. But we're also looking at that transition to getting an associate's degree and then deciding what you're doing. And so I'm seeing a need, you know, in that space and what we're able to do when there are options available.
So for the high school students, we handle each case as it comes. It depends on the agreement with the school and the college, and how we bring students into the online courses, because they have to have a MATC login in order to get in. So it's a little bit challenging sometimes, because the expectation for online learning, when people went through the pandemic, it was take a course and make sure that we can get to it from virtually. So the quality wasn't as good. We are working with the high school people at the college to make sure that we have a method to bring students in online. I'm not going to say it's settled, but we're getting there. We have a standard for our faculty to teach at a certain level for online to ensure that the students are getting a quality experience. So we require the faculty, regardless of where they're coming from or who they're teaching, to be at a certain level. So right now we're trying to set up transition teaching and instruction for those faculty and the teachers from MPS and other high schools, so that we can ensure that continuum of quality throughout the courses, regardless of if it's K-12 or if it's post-secondary.
Yeah, I was talking more like in that transcripted world, because we're still very much in the traditional piece where students wanting to take a technical college class while they're still in high school is still physically going to the campus. And and I get the hands-on piece of it as compared to going to maybe a university where you might be getting more of a lecture type class if you're doing that I'm going to Marquette as a senior and taking Calc 3 or something. And I get that piece of it, but I'm just wondering how much we've thought outside of that to build that capacity where transportation and some of those other things to high school students is more of a concern. And maybe because I'm on the western side of Milwaukee County is where we're from that space, trying to think about that and how do we make the accessibility when there's those options? Because I don't know that we've pushed on that piece of it. So I understand the quality in that, and the same thing has to happen with transcript and credit. I'm just talking about MATC instructors teaching that way, because then it avoids one other barrier that we're looking at for some students. So I was just questioning that, and I understand that we're still underway. So I just wanted to know like how we're trying to build that space to continue access to high school students to that in that same level. So
Yeah, and we've tried several things. We have orientations designated for the high school students so that we have those live with the students for Blackboard and some of the other practices of a college online student. So we have those specific for high school students, and it's a lot different because when we talk about transportation problems, we really don't have that on our part for online, but we have this challenge of devices and access and those types of things. So a little bit different for our area. The transportation side, I don't have an answer for that. It's not really in my wheelhouse, but the side for technology we have resources for connectivity, we have loan outs, we have hotspots and things like that. I work with the team that manages that to ensure that we are in tandem with what we say we can offer to our students, and then what we have available for them.
yeah, I get that. I'm just saying at the K-12 world, and I know you're probably speaking MPS. I'm talking about every other high school. I don't think devices and connectivity is that same issue. That's what I'm just saying. I think it's an untapped place that we should be exploring. So in that piece of it, so connectivity and devices, not an issue. Like most K-12 districts are 1-to-1 starting at second grade. So that part of it would provide that access. And I'm just saying, I think there's an opportunity to connect students there. So thanks. Any other questions for Dr. Holtz on their presentation? Okay, thank you very much for providing that information to us in advance. Thank you. Our last under board monitoring is our community education update, and I have Dr. Dockwork who will be presenting that.
Thank you, Chairperson. Hello again. So we have a brief PowerPoint presentation. We'll go through it rather quickly, and then we'll entertain any questions that you may have. Take your time, Bob. That's all right. Let's start this.
So good evening, Chairwoman Olson, board members, and the community. Just to give you an update since we last met, a lot has been happening over the last month. I'm happy to say that we have 4 new positions. So faculty hiring has been taking place. And the 4 new positions are permanent positions at Walker's. There's 2 full-time English as a second language, 1 GED math, 1 GED communications, and 1 math. And to let you know that all of those positions are bilingual. And we have been including faculty and staff, cross-functional teams that include deans, staff, faculty and staff on the hiring committees, round 1 and round 2. So that is in process. And we expect to make offers in May, early June, with a start date of August. So for the fall semester. Regarding the multilingual application work team, we have a cross-functional team that is working on many of the issues that came up at the last board meeting regarding how do we make it more user-friendly for our students who are non-English speaking. And so we do have a team that is led by David Rowe and Tony Taglavia, and we have a work team of faculty and staff on this. So this is ongoing and we're making a lot of progress. In terms of office hours, we did hear from faculty and staff that they requested for myself to have more availability, and I have been doing that. So I have on my schedule, I have office hours, pretty much 16 hours over the course of April and May. So 2 hours a week. And it's flexible in the sense that I looked at morning, afternoon, evening to meet with students. And then we posted flyers outside of all the classrooms at Walker's on the 4th and 5th floor. But to let students know that I realized that they might have classes during that time, they have to work, to let them know that they could reach out to me and I could make any appointment or make appointments as needed. And in terms of communication and engagement with stakeholders, a lot has been going on in terms of meeting with different community-based organizations, just to name a few: Literacy Services of Wisconsin, Social Development Commission, the MATC, the City of Milwaukee, the State of Wisconsin. And we are really, I mean, it's no new news in terms of Walker's is really considered to be a central place to host different types of meetings. So in the even this upcoming Saturday, we will be having Dia de los Niños, which is a Mexican celebration day, so Day of the Children. And so we expect over 100 people to be walking through the doors of at Walker's. And then we will be sharing information about our GED or ESL programming and other programs that we have. We will also be hosting a public information meeting June 8th and June 10th. And this is a partnership with the City of Milwaukee and the State of Wisconsin to talk about the reconstruction efforts on National Avenue. So those are just some community engagement activities. And as far as facilitated work sessions, there's been a lot going on in terms of meeting with faculty, having an ESL lead faculty meetings, and these have taken place at Mequon and Walker's. And what I've asked the faculty or I believe it was one of the faculty members that suggested that we rotate and we go to all the campuses. So we're doing that. And an update from the Casa Abierta. If you remember, Casa Abierta was March 23rd, and the ESL GED table had the most touch points, if you will. We had over 100 students or adults who came to the table wanting to know more about English as a second language. And so I'm really thankful that our student workers during spring break, they worked and they reached out to all those adults, and they are scheduled for testing in early June. And so the idea would be that hopefully they will be enrolled in the summer or the fall. And then also have met with Latinos Unidos, the student Latinx group. And those are my updates, and I'd like to pass it on to Dr.
Next slide, please. So in addition to this work, we had 2 focus sessions, one on April 5th, the other on April 6th, 3 hours each, total of 6 hours. We had over, I think, about 30 people attending, admins, faculty, staff, and we shared the plan with you, the improvement plan. We will be looking into a SWOT analysis sometime soon, and we look into proposed recommendations of the work team as well. And I'll tell you in a bit more about this. In addition to this, we want to make sure that everything that we do is aligned with the recommendations, especially the issues that have been brought before the board. So we took a very close look at every single question, every single concern, every single issue that came up, and we wanted to make sure that it is part of the improvement plan. Next slide, please. So next steps is, in addition to the report that we shared with you, we will take a close look with the team, and we have a meeting already scheduled on May 10th. And that's when we will do the SWOT analysis and provide the data sets needed to make sure that we vet these recommendations and make final recommendations to the president, to the cabinet, and then to the board. In addition to this, we'd like to vet our plan with our students. So we plan to meet with some students. go through the plan, see if we missed anything, and see if there are any gaps prior to providing the recommendations to the cabinet and to the board. That concludes my report, and we'll take any questions that you may have. Yes.
Sorry, this question is for the ED. Are you full-time?
Yes.
Is there a specific reason as to why we only have like 2 hours available weekly for staff and students to meet with you if they have issues?
It's really based on scheduled meetings that I already had on my calendar, so I really, I'm trying to meet with students whenever is possible. So if anybody contacted me, I'm available. So.
So if someone's able to reach you, they can
Oh, yeah.
still reach you.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I speak about this, or because you guys have put it as a public document, or?
I don't know what you have.
This is a plan that we shared with the board.
So
By all
so I
means, I
can
would
speak-
say yes.
speak
I would
on
say
this
yes.
document that we received. I wanted to just be sure that I'm.
Yeah,
not-
I just couldn't tell exactly what you were showing, so
It's
like,
the
yeah,
document
sure.
that they gave us for this section.
Yep, then you can, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so when I received this, I think the first thing that popped out to me was that we had a lot of to be determined. And I feel like we've been doing this for 4 months now, and there wasn't a single resolution on it. Like, not one thing that has been resolved or has been provided with like an interim resolution for some of these issues. And I feel like some of them are things that we've gotten reports on today, with staffing or like barriers for students, which we're trying to retain. So like, how difficult is it for us to find some solutions until a more permanent solution is available in
Yeah.
some of these areas?
Yeah.
And I mean, I count 3 of them that I can see like easy, quick solutions for. And
Would you mind sharing the 3 with us, if you don't mind?
well, first off, staffing.
Staffing?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
if we have like part-time staff that can move up to full-time, are we offering those positions? Are we seeking them out so that we can make sure that we are retaining those students that have been held on wait lists or had classes canceled?
Would you like me to address it, and then you can go to
Yeah.
the other 2?
Yeah,
So staffing, we continue to look into staffing, for the other pathways as well, but we made a commitment to community education.
Mhm.
At this point, no one else, had this kind of pre-commitment and so on. We've committed ourselves to 4 permanent full-time positions. The ones that we shared with you, 2 ESL and 2 bilingual and so on. We feel that, the needs are met for this spring. We feel confident about the summer. We want to make sure that we're really solid going into the fall. So all this planning is gonna, going into the fall. And we want to make sure that we have the best planning or the best plans, I should say, going into the fall. So the staffing portion of it, as far as faculty, we feel that, we met the needs of the spring semester. We're not aware of any additional sections that need to be covered. So at this time, the staffing, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but the truth is we've made a pre-commitment and we're sticking to that. I don't know if
and
that makes sense.
and I can respect that.
Thank you.
When we say we hired these staff, are they floating staff? Are they at all campuses? Or are we just talking about Walker Square?
This is strictly dedicated to Walker Square.
Okay,
And this is, to be honest with you, I mean, if you look at the staffing there, they deserve it. And we needed to do this, and I think we may even build on it potentially, but this is a pre-commitment going into the fall.
okay. Can I
Yes,
follow
please go
questions
on.
to
Yes.
that one? So for the staff that's needed at the other campuses, do you know how many open positions are at each one of those campuses that need filling?
Absolutely, yep. So the way the process works is each dean would tell me way in advance about their potential needs. We do projections, enrollment, trends, and all that good stuff and so on. And we monitor these numbers very closely. We are seeing some changes in enrollments. I think I shared with the board last time. If you don't mind me, I'll go through the numbers quickly. Macwan campus, only 5% of ESL enrollments. West Allis, 8%.
Okay.
Walker Square, impressive 13%. So we're seeing growth and almost shifting from other campuses to Walker Square. And then the two big ones are Oak Creek and Milwaukee campus on the average 20% each. To be specific, 18% over Oak Creek, 21 at the Milwaukee campus, and we have an online component. The reason I share this with you, because I think we see some shifting in the district. And I think it would only make sense for us to shift resources as well. Meaning to say, if we're seeing less sections, less offerings and so on, then we can really move these kind of, more full-time, more part-time, to your point, can teach at these other locations instead of keep adding up and piling.
And the 4 faculty that you hired at Walker Square are all full-time?
Yes, they are. Permanent, full-time, yes. Yep. And this is based on the recommendation of the folks that you talked to. They came to you and they very specifically requested these. We've been working very closely with them. And this is exactly what we honored so far.
Director Mendieta Ramos, you have your hand up.
Yes, if I can just make a comment and / question. This is the 4th meeting where we have the comments from the public for the same topic. And we keep hearing the same thing over and over. We know as a board that there's some progress being made. And unfortunately, most of the individuals that come for the comments and, make their case, they leave after the open sessions. But it doesn't seem like we're doing a good job of communicating any of this progress. And I'm just, wondering or challenging, how can we do this better? I know, Dr. Tucker, last meeting, you made an apology for everything that has happened publicly, and that was great. And I just think that if maybe some of the students or the community would have heard you, I know this is recorded, but not everybody goes and watch the video on YouTube, but maybe post it somewhere so that they don't feel that we're completely ignoring them. I mean, there's a lot going on. You guys are doing a lot to make corrections, and yet, just today, again, the young lady was like, well, the board is not doing anything. You guys are not doing anything. And it looks like we are. So I just think that there's room for improvement when it comes to communication from our end.
I completely agree, and I truly appreciate your comments as well. I'll connect with our marketing team, and I think we need to communicate better. There's just a lot of perceptions out there, and it's on us to really change these perceptions and state the facts and show them. We really have to rebuild trust. I think we lost their confidence and their trust, and it's going to take us some time. So we'll do the best we can. Like I said, I'll work with our teams. I do agree that we need to communicate and get the word out. MATC truly cares about the community, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, we never, ever said that we're not gonna, meet the needs of our community, but there was a perception out there. Reducing classes, not, we made, this kind of, public kind of, maybe embarrassing kind of situation we got ourselves into, but it's so untrue. We never really had lack of commitment to meet the community needs. But there was a gap at some point, and we continue to pay the price as of today. So I'm agreeing with you, and we'll do better on the communication. We need to do better. So
thank you.
You're welcome. You said 3, and then we addressed. I think you have 2 more. I'm really sorry.
Well, yes, you mentioned the point about the communication, and I think that was the first point that I mentioned about the hours that's available for. If they could come to you, the people from the public and faculty, staff, and students could come to you guys, they wouldn't be coming here.
To be honest with you, our philosophy in the past, we have excellent team over there. We have ICs, instructional chairs, we have faculty, we have staff. They meet the needs of the community. In the past, I don't think that many people needed to see the ED or the VP and so on and so forth. Because of this situation, though, we made it really, really bad, and the lack of trust and the lack of confidence. If we rebuild the trust with our team, internal team and so on, you guys start to see the difference. Because they will connect with them. But right now, even our employees do not have the same level of confidence in us, and it shows. So now everything's going up to top management. In the past, honestly, this was never the case.
And I just want to add that, so last Saturday, Latinos Unidos had their monthly meeting, and as I sat with faculty, yes, one faculty member, advisor, and students. I shared with them the flyer as far as my office hours and restated, you know, have you seen this, that I'm available? And I really encouraged all of them to meet with me, to talk about, you know, how's it going with their classes? Did they have any questions for me? I'm a first in my family to go to school. I'm a daughter of immigrants. So I feel that I have a real connection with the students, and so I'm continuing to do that. So whether it's this Saturday at Dia de los Niños, connecting with students, letting them know, again, we're announcing it here. I think we could do better in terms of in the week ahead. Maybe we think about a weekly report about an update on ComEd. Because we have been doing a lot, and I just I'm really feeling good and hopeful about the progress we've made. Yeah.
Sorry, and I'm not certainly discounting any progress or efforts that are putting into it. But again, it has been 4 months, and not seeing something like concrete in place is a little bit disparaging. I know if I go to work and I'm not producing, I would still be there, right? So my thought process is I would see something more concrete at this point. Like, even if it was in an interim type of, like, we'll put this in place until something better comes along, or until we can really put something in concrete into place. And I don't feel like I've seen that anywhere in this document. And part of communication is, when I received this document, I asked the college whether or not this was going to be available to the public, because the public came to us about this issue. So it should also be available to them to see exactly what that process looked like. That's just us as a college showing transparency to all of our efforts. So that's just echoing what the other director just stated. Like, it's been several months. And if we don't want people to keep echoing things like retaliation and that people aren't available, or, you know, that they're having meetings that really are empty lists. I mean, this document kind of shows that what they're saying and what people keep saying, and the message that we had before in the last board meeting makes those things just feel, again, kind of truthful. So, like, I would like to see us do more. Not saying we're not doing work, but I would like to see more with resolutions attached to it and concrete evidence of what we're doing. Great job on the hires.
The point is well taken. That's fine. Absolutely.
Any other discussion or questions?
No, I won't drag it out.
What?
I said, no, I won't drag it out. I had another one, but.
Oh, please, I mean.
No,
No, it's fine. I think I've stated kind of like what my concern and what my frustration is. And all I can do is continue to just hope that we address it as a college.
So I'm really sorry about your frustration. I mean, I couldn't tell you how sorry I am. I mean, to come before the board and have to sit here and just apologize, you know, over and over. So we are doing the best we can, you know, we're making firm commitments. We're looking into other opportunities as well, potentially. We've been talking to the teams, working with them. Are we moving fast enough for them? Maybe not. Are they seeing every single thing they're asking for? Maybe not, but you know, it's gonna, you know, but you know, believe me, I mean, what you're looking at is really a mutual work with the team, the staff, the faculty. It's not Mohammed, it's not Patricia. This is really the team. And we're really trying to address these as soon as possible. The only thing that we were concerned about is in some cases, we had very specific recommendations. I mean, staffing and, you know, and so on. And we really wanted to kind of follow process. I mean, we have to go back to the root cause analysis. Otherwise, we are addressing and coming up with solutions without even addressing the root cause and so on. That's the only thing that we're asking for. And we're doing this over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And after that, solid recommendations all the way going to the cabinet and to the board. And hopefully comes May, you know, hopefully we have final recommendations. And to your point about sharing something publicly with our constituents and community, I agree totally. This particular document had very specific names on it. I don't know if you noticed and so on. It's incomplete. We wanted to share this with the board. Wasn't really meant to be shared with the public. but we can work on a document that we can share with the public.
Okay.
Did you get your questions answered? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. On to new business. Is there any new business? I still always hand up, I can't see it.
No.
Just want to make
No,
sure.
there's
Okay,
I don't have to put this back into new business, do I?
we're good. We're good. Yep, I think it's an ongoing thing. So thanks for checking though. Mhm. Future events which have been announced, tomorrow is the apprenticeship banquet at 5:50. And then our spring commencement on Sunday, May 21st at 11 a.m. If you did not sign up, if you're still checking that, please let Beth know. We do have to get a head count and all of that as they set up the stage for a variety of people participating. And then on the GED graduation that's here at Cooley Auditorium on May 22nd. Our next board meeting is here on May 23rd at 4 p.m. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Arm wrestling.
Thank you.
I have the biggest headache.
Meeting is adjourned.
Tracy, did you get signups for commencement and?
Yeah, that was the one that I.
Yeah, I just
Like-
wasn't sure if.
Yeah.
I don't know how. I can fill that.
Okay, okay.
I just figured I can.
Yeah, that's what I, yeah.
So I was
yeah,
gonna let.
yeah,
everybody
so
else
many
sign up.
hours.
Okay, I don't.
It's harder for
I don't know,
me
I
on
think
a-
I've just like kind of been overworking myself.
Weekday. Especially because I have a board meeting that day, so that would
Yeah.
be hard.
Yeah. I can cover that.
Okay, thanks. Yep, we'll get those back to you.
No problem. Thank you.